What if I told you that one of the greatest point guards in NBA history, a man who went toe-to-toe with Michael Jordan in back-to-back finals, almost didn't appear in the most talked about sports documentary of the 21st century? John Stockton, the NBA's all-time leader in assists and steals, didn't want to be part of The Last Dance. And his reason? He didn't want to be in what he called a Michael Jordan puff piece. Now let's unpack that.
I kind of looked at everybody as a rival. You can't play against guys if you're looking up to them and going, oh my goodness.
Behind the glitz of The Last Dance, a cultural moment watched by millions, especially during the early days of COVID lockdowns, lies a deeper story about legacy, perception, and how history is told in the world of sports. Today, we're going to explore why John Stockton was so hesitant to participate, what this says about how Jordan's peers really felt, and how The Last Dance may have unintentionally rewritten the legacies of others who helped shape the NBA. Buckle up, this isn't just about a documentary, it's about how sports history gets made, told, and sometimes rewritten. Let's start with Stockton himself. He is the NBA's all-time leader in assists and steals. A career Utah Jazz point guard, Stockton was the definition of efficient, consistent, and no-nonsense. He wasn't flashy, rarely sought the spotlight, and stayed true to the quiet, hard-nosed brand of basketball. So when The Last Dance producer Jason Here reached out to interview him, it wasn't a surprise that Stockton declined. But it wasn't about him being media shy. According to Jason, Stockton flat out said, "I don't want to be a part of a Michael Jordan puff piece." That line speaks volumes. To Stockton, and probably to many of Jordan's peers, The Last Dance didn't feel like a balanced documentary. It felt like a celebration of one man. And while Stockton respected MJ, even calling him a friend, he didn't want to sit on a camera and say, "Michael, you're wonderful," just because the cameras were rolling. He wasn't alone in this sentiment as well. You see, Stockton wasn't the only one. Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, all Hall of Famers, all reluctant to appear. But why? Because there was a clear perception that The Last Dance wasn't really about the Bulls. It was all about Michael Jordan. And here's the thing, they weren't actually wrong. Despite being billed as the behind-the-scenes look at the 1990s Bulls dynasty, The Last Dance was produced by Jordan's own company, Jump 23. That fact alone changes how you interpret the whole thing. When a subject of a documentary also controls the narrative, how objective can it really be? After 2 years of chasing him, Here finally got Stockton on the phone. The world was already deep into the COVID-19 pandemic. Flights were being grounded, seasons were being suspended. Still, they managed to send a camera crew to Washington, Stockton's home, to get an interview just weeks before the documentary aired. Stockton agreed to do the interview under one condition. He wanted to speak freely, no scripted praise, no hero worship. And in an interview, he said, and I quote, "They're trying to promote Michael. I don't just want to sit there and go, 'Michael, you're wonderful.' Even though I feel that way, he is. It just wasn't my way. It isn't my style." This says a lot about Stockton's values and about the state of sports documentaries. Let's be real, Michael Jordan is the most mythologized athlete of all time. He's a 6-time champion, a 5-time MVP, a cultural icon, and for many, the undisputed GOAT. But when you look at The Last Dance, it's hard to ignore how much it shaped that mythology. Scottie Pippen felt disrespected about how he was portrayed, Isaiah Thomas called the editing of the Dream Team saga BS, and Horace Grant said the documentary was full of lies. Even Luke Longley, the starting center during the second three-peat, wasn't featured at all, and Tony Kukoc barely mentioned. The result, a documentary that elevated Jordan's legend, but often at the expense of others who were critical to the Bulls' success. But here's where it gets interesting. Because The Last Dance isn't just a documentary, is it? It's a form of legacy control. Jordan gave the green light for the project after LeBron James won the 2016 NBA Finals. Coincidence? Maybe. But a lot of people saw it as Jordan reminding the world who the real GOAT was. And by producing the documentary himself, Jordan ensured his version of events would be the ones preserved. Let's also not forget that this was released in 2020, the year the Lakers and LeBron won their last championship. This brings us back to Stockton. His refusal to be a part of a one-sided narrative shows how careful these players are about their own legacies, especially when the public tends to believe whatever they see on Netflix. It also raises an important question: who gets to tell the story? Stockton's inclusion, though brief, added value to the documentary. He offered unique perspective as someone who challenged the Bulls at the height of their powers. His Jazz teams in 97 and 98 were arguably the biggest threat to the Bulls dynasty, and Jordan had immense respect for him. But even in that role, Stockton knew that the narrative could be shaped. He wanted to be a part of the story, not just a side character in the Jordan saga. And that's exactly why his perspective matters. There's often a disconnect between how the public sees sports icons and how their peers do. Fans worship Jordan. They saw The Last Dance as gospel. But players, they know the reality. They were actually there. They know Jordan wasn't perfect, that he bullied teammates, that he held grudges, that he wasn't always the nicest guy behind closed doors, and really that a perfect basketball player doesn't exist. To them, The Last Dance was less of a documentary and more of a highlight reel for Jordan's narrative. And while it was entertaining, it left a lot out. Isaiah Thomas, Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Luke Longley, Tony Kukoc, all not spoken about enough. These were just supporting actors. They were vital to the Bulls' 6 championships though, and they should have had a more pronounced role. Yet the way The Last Dance was cut made some of them look weak, petty, or even irrelevant. Even Phil Jackson, the architect behind the triangle offense, felt like a secondary character in Jordan's movie. That's why players like Stockton were hesitant, because when you're not telling the whole story, you're distorting history. Let's pause and ask, what should a great sports documentary do? It should tell a compelling story, yes, but also an honest one. It should capture the nuance, the conflict, the messiness of greatness. And while The Last Dance had its moments, it was captivating, emotional, even nostalgic, it ultimately leaned into one perspective. Imagine a version where Jordan wasn't the co-producer. Would we have seen more from Kukoc, from Pippen's side, from Steve Kerr's rising role, from Jerry Krause's real vision? Would it have changed how we view that dynasty? John Stockton's hesitation wasn't out of spite, it was out of integrity. He didn't want to be a pawn in someone else's legacy game. He didn't want it just to be about praise for Jordan because it was convenient. He wanted to tell his truth, win or lose. And that's something we should really all respect. Because in the end, The Last Dance may have been Jordan's story, but it wasn't the whole story. So here's a question for you. Do you think The Last Dance was a masterpiece of storytelling or a one-sided tribute that left a lot out? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more upcoming videos and NBA content. My name is Damian Peters, this is Basketball Network. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one.